Hello, and welcome to the Sensibly Speaking podcast. This is Chris Shelton, the critical thinker at large. Hey, everybody. We are coming at you on all the usual platforms where, great podcasts are sold. And with video here on YouTube, I hope you guys are watching. And as you can see, with my nice new formatting, I'm trying to, upgrade the look of the podcast. Even though, ironically, it's a podcast, so it should really be just audio, but, whatever. And this week, you can see I have a guest. Her name is Kat, and that is all we are saying about her is her name is Kat. Hi, Kat.
Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
I am glad we are finally having this conversation. Wasn't it, was it 3 years ago that you first contacted me?
Yeah, it was in 2017. That's when I was doing what I was doing.
Yeah, and you had, so now correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't really think about this too much until today when I knew we would be talking. And if I remember this right, you reached out to me because you were thinking about writing a book or doing something comedic and yet incisive or detailed or knowledgeable about the subject of Scientology.
Yes. So that's basically what I was trying to do. What ended up happening was not that.
Right. That's right. Best laid plans.
Yeah.
But here we are 3 years later, and we're going to talk about all the things that happened. I mean, this was it was kind of an interesting, nobody had ever reached out to me with something like that before. I was intrigued, but dubious. Like you're going to do what?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people felt the same way. So, I don't blame you. I basically what I wanted to do was I had read Going Clear. I'd seen a bunch of stuff, and I'd been following you and Aaron's YouTube channels, and they were really, really interesting. Plus, I'd seen a bunch of interviews with other people, and so I knew all of the let's say scandalous bad things that had happened in Scientology, but I felt like there was a gap in the knowledge of okay, this is a whole system of belief that has clearly multiple levels and parts and different things. And I have heard all these people's very personal stories, and yet I don't know what the fuck they were doing the entire time. So my plan, or what I wanted to do, was just because I knew that the church wouldn't allow someone to go in and openly be like, hey, I'm here to find out what you guys do, but I'm not actually interested in being a Scientologist.
Right. They actually call that, they actually have that as a label of a source of trouble for the church.
Yes. Well, they weren't wrong about that.
So maybe not in this case, but
yeah.
But you weren't going in there to purposefully stir up trouble.
No, I was not really going in there to it's kind of strange for me that I'm gonna relate personal things that happened, because originally what I wanted to do, and what I think I might still do if I have the time to do it, is I want to actually teach people in a fun, I still have that comedy side, I'm a stand-up comedian and all that. It's kind of on hold. But I wanted to basically go through, what do Scientologists do in these classes? What are they learning? What's the, what are they being sold? And how are they spending their time in these classes? So basically what I wanted to do whenever I reached out to you was kind of get the inside scoop as I was learning this stuff, because there's two parts to it. There's what they're teaching you and what they're actually teaching you.
Right.
And so I wanted to have both perspectives as I was doing it. But what ended up happening, to kind of sum it all up real quick, is that these are actually people. And so I ended up becoming a little bit entangled in their lives.
The human element. You actually made human connection with people and found out that they're not just a bunch of robotic cult member automatons.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that they were beforehand. I just didn't, I underestimated the level to which I would be affected by their lives,
Yeah.
and by witnessing their lives.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I don't think that's a black mark against you. I think that's a feature, not a bug in,
yeah,
empathy, compassion, stuff like that.
I hope so. Cause I mean, I've struggled a lot with like, you know, it did involve deception. And like, because I ended up becoming close with some people, I felt very badly about that and I still do sometimes because originally I didn't think I'd be deceiving anyone that would have any personal connection to me, so it wasn't a big deal.
Mm.
But then after a while, you're like, I'm deceiving someone that actually is starting to put trust in me, and so that's a little bit. Um, it was rough.
Well, it is. And one of the things that I've been asked many times over the years and has happened a couple times is people going into the Church of Scientology undercover.
Hmm.
With an investigatory purpose. Sometimes it's satirical and absolutely hilarious. I mean, you have Reckless Ben, right, who went out
Hmm.
and, Ben and Mike. They really did the whole number. And then, of course, Ross and Carrie went in and they
Yeah.
did, found out about a Purif, did a dianetics seminar and stuff. And there have been other efforts as well. And finding out, how it had broken up families, disconnected, like it was really serious, and that
Hmm.
there was this really dark side to it. I think that was really more of what kind of got to him was, oh wow, we're making fun of something, but really this is a subject that people have had some real problems with.
That's definitely something I ran into as well because I held on to this idea of like making it comedic for a long time, and after a while, like I wasn't laughing anymore. Like it wasn't like I was just like, damn, this is just hard. Like this is just sad. A
Hmm.
lot of it is just sad. I mean, I don't want to say that everyone is miserable, but it's people are living their lives and stuff, but it's there's something just very very sad about what's going on, even on like a low level class 5 org. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, that's right. Now, Class 5 orgs, of course, for those of you who don't know, those are the city level churches. The ones you'd see most often if you were going around to, the Denver Church of Scientology or the Austin or the Los Angeles or, the Madrid Church of Scientology. These are called Class 5 organizations in Scientology. Or they call them orgs for short. Did you hear much in the time? I'll ask you some. I'm curious about a bunch of stuff, and I'm just kind of
yeah,
probably
we never have like actually sat
we
down and had
haven't.
the whole conversation about what happened.
No, we haven't. This is the debrief. I mean, we haven't really had the conversation at all. And it's been I knew you were going to do this. We have maintained communication over these
Yeah.
years about some of the things that came up during the process of it because you were involved at the city level church. You were involved with Flag a little bit, so you mixed it up with the Sea Org a little bit. Um, and it was quite an interesting trek, and we really didn't know where it was going to go. And so, just kind of randomly, I guess, because I'm curious, did you run into people? Did you run into any Scientologists along the line who were earnest about its religiosity, about it being a church? Did they call it a church? Did they try to pump the Sunday services and the religious aspect of it?
um, I would say that I don't know if they were being earnest, like they really believed it, but they were earnestly telling me that it was. There was a couple of
Uh,
people. I know there was someone that was a religious studies major, who phrased it in that way.
hmm.
And
He was a college kid who was doing services, or he was staff, or who? What?
so this was someone that had gone to college, but she was older. She was in her 40s.
Oh,
And then there was one college student who was can I say where it was?
yep. You can say whatever you
Yeah.
want. The only
Okay.
reason I'm holding back is because I want to keep it safe for you to say as much as you want without too much if you don't want to.
Right. So I'm not gonna. I actually have like a list of names that I've like have switched their names because I want to like protect their privacy. But
Cool.
there was a UT student, University of Texas. So this was in Austin, and he was taking classes at UT while working on staff there.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really funny. I was talking to some other UT students, and I was telling them about what I was doing, and one of them said, "Oh, there's a Scientologist in my religious studies class," and he got really offended because this professor was talking about Scientology being a cult, and he like raised his hand and was like, "I don't." He like was objecting to this out in the open.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder how that conversation went. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that classroom
I
that day.
know. Yeah, I brought him over to there's a co-op that like a student housing co-op that I was involved in, and he came over one time, and the girl that had told me that story saw him and she was like, "Oh, you're that," and I was like, "No, you don't. We've never had that conversation."
Nope, we never talked about this. Interesting, interesting. Yeah, I was just kind of curious about that because I'll tell you, the whole time I was a staff member, it was a pretty big non-issue. Almost a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, know what I mean, sort of thing. I mean, it was almost that, you know, we know this is just for the PR of it. We know this isn't really like a big thing. None of us are going to church on Sunday. You know, I mean, whenever a Scientologist would say that, there was always a little bit of emphasis or irony put into the statement.
Yeah,
you know?
and I was mostly I wasn't presenting like a different persona, so I was being myself, and so I don't think that they felt that I was someone that needed to be assured of that.
Right.
Like one of them said, "Fuck Jesus Christ" at one point, so I was like, okay, yeah, well,
there we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're open to all denominations.
Yeah.
So, okay. So how did you present yourself? How did you get, how did you open the door and walk in, and what happened when you first stepped foot in there?
Okay. Well, there's a lot of elements to this story because it went kind of, I didn't have exactly my game plan. I think I came up with the idea that I wanted to do this after I stepped in. So like the going in was sort of on a whim, and then afterwards I was like, I think I want to like see how far I can get into this, like and like learn, and then maybe do something with that. So my first time going in, I was just like, I think I just like gotten done going to therapy and like was walking down. I lived in the neighborhood of the org, so I was like always around it. So I was like walking next to it, and I was like, you know what? I've read so much about Scientology. Like I've probably more than anyone I know, like have been curious about this place, but I've never like it's been here like the last 10 years that I've been here. Like I should just walk in and like see what happens. So that first day I walked in, and the front desk guy, who I'm gonna call Ben, he basically set me up with the standard personality test and the IQ test. And once I was done doing those, they wanted me to go back into the video room and watch a video on dianetics, which was the worst. It was just terrible.
Really?
It was like the story of a football player.
Oh, they showed you the story of book one?
Yeah.
Oh my! Or wait a minute. Was it? It's either story of book one or no. It was Evolution of a Science, with the football player who was paralyzed from the waist down, and then he gets a copy of Evolution of a Science as a manuscript in like 19. This is supposedly based on a true story in Scientology.
Oh, okay.
That film is told. Hubbard told that story as though it were true. That actually happened.
Yeah, it kind of felt like that, but I was like, I don't really know. Yeah. So, one of the first things I noticed, like, because I was green to the experience of interacting with Scientologists, so all these things, like in the first few weeks, like I would notice that like became sort of commonplace after a while, but like at the very beginning, it was very strange. Like Ben stayed in the room for a second, and he like put on the video, And before it like started, there was a word, I can't remember what the word was, but he was like, do you know what the word like this means? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay, I'm just making sure, because he says it in the first like sentence. And then later, whenever I was being sold the Dianetics book, as I was like about to leave the org, the person that sold it to me was like, just make sure you don't go past a word that you don't understand. That's really important. And that's whenever I started hearing like that stuff, like it's like always on their minds.
Yep.
You know.
That's right.
So
yeah, it's a very important principle, and they want to keep you. They want you to be they want you to stick around, and they believe because Hubbard says that if people go past words they don't understand in reading something, that they will become upset with it, not understand it, and actually throw the book away, get rid of it, take off, not want to study. So,
and I think that to me, like really, things like that really added to the unreality of the whole situation for a long time, because you know, with some other religions, like things are kind of put on like as an idea of faith, but like whenever I was around a lot of Scientologists that all believed certain things, they believed them as like scientific facts. So they really literally believed that if I went past a word, I would be like, fuck this, and be done with it. And that would be like a true, like undeniable fact that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very strange to be surrounded by that all the time, because people actually really truly did believe those things. So
yeah, exactly.
As you know, obviously.
Yeah. No, that's right. There is a sound.
Is it my jacket?
Maybe. There's something hitting the microphone or something. Okay, good.
I'll just take off my
awesome.
jacket.
Thank you. I just wanted to clear that up.
No worries.
Yeah, so no, they do take that stuff seriously, and like you said, they actually regard it as at the same level as you know, scientific fact, as the hard sciences, you know.
Yeah. So after I was shown this video, they graded my IQ test and my personality test, and I actually was looking over it. I hadn't looked over what the written thing said. I was looking over it a couple of days ago, and I was like, "Holy shit, this thing is harsh as hell!" Like, it's
yeah,
it's like
this like the evaluation script of what they're supposed to say to you.
Yeah. Like I don't remember her being that harsh about it, but like I'm going back and reading this thing that I had, you know, tossed aside, didn't read it. And I'm like, damn, this is just like a savage takedown of my personality.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So at that point I was like, you know what, I'll spend the $20 for the book Dianetics and a free Dianetics session.
Oh, they give you a session. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So they said the session came along with the book. If I bought the book, you know,
nice
I would
gimmick.
Get and I actually had like 4 sessions of Dianetic auditing sessions by the time this is all over.
What'd you think?
Boring.
Boring. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Not uncommon response.
Yeah.
To it.
It was it was basically boring because, you know, you're just repeating the same thing over and over again for hours. And that's not fun. It's very boring.
Yeah. No, it's not. It can be tedious, in fact. Mm-hmm. And Hubbard calls this, if it goes on too long like that, then you're grinding. You're not supposed to actually be, that's not how it's supposed to go. But, you know, whatever. That's how it's supposed to go, and how it goes are kind of two different things. Yeah. So you were kind of going in to see what this was about. You hadn't quite fully formulated this idea of this longer term project. You were honestly curious about it.
Well, I was just curious, like, my desire in that first like little whim that I was doing was to just go in and take the personality test. Mm-hmm. But once they set up, come back in a week and we'll give you the Dianetic session. They were like, they wanted me to read as much as I could and then get the Dianetic session in a week. During that week, I was like, okay, I have this idea of like what I want to do.
Oh, okay.
And so I came back and got that dianetics session. And it was interesting, but yeah, it was pretty boring.
Would you
Um,
have stuck around if you hadn't envisioned this longer term project of finding out what this was all about?
no, I don't think so. I don't think I could have justified it to myself,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's what happens to a lot of people. You know, we talk about this business of, you know, them finding your ruin, you know, pushing your buttons, getting you emotionally connected, and then feeding you, you know, Hubbard stuff. And that is the way people get connected with it. But an awful lot of people go in, have exactly the first and second experience you had, and
yeah,
go, okay, whatever, and leave. Just walk out the
yeah.
door and never come back, you know?
Yeah, well, in a way, it's funny because in a way, like I don't want to say that they definitely found my ruin, but like um, because they didn't ever get me to actually believe in any of their things, but they did get me to stay around for a while, and they got some of my money.
Yeah.
Um, and like about a year later, I was talking to a Sea Org member who was like asking me like, how did I get in? And I basically told her what the truth was, which was I was bored, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Oh, so you needed a game?" And I was like,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, there's nothing.
"Yeah,
Oh yeah, no, there's
yeah,
they've heard everything. So
yeah,
yeah, of course, they don't really
yeah,
care how you get in as long as you stick around.
right." And so that really was the truth. Is I was bored. I think you know, Trump had just become president, and I was like, fuck everything. So I was bored, and in that week I decided like, why not do this? I just got a job that paid me like quite a bit of money, quite a bit more money than I had ever made. So I was like, I could kind of like, I could see myself doing this and like getting out and then being done.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So is that kind of thing, and of course they're gonna think now with you so freely admitting this that of course it was never going to work on you in the first place because you didn't have the right attitude.
right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, this attitude's everything when it comes to groups like this. And,
Hmm.
you know, the funny thing about science is that it is true that your mood can affect your health. And it is true that your emotional well being definitely has an effect on your general well being and general health. But you don't have to believe the measles vaccine is going to work in order for it to work.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, you don't
Exactly.
have to believe anything in order for
Hmm.
science to do its thing. That's the whole point of it. And so
Hmm.
they're a bit off on this, you know. Oh, you were
Yeah.
just a
But
source of trouble from the get-go.
yeah, I mean, and that's it's
I just got to poke a pin in that because
no.
I
I
know
think it's
for a
good that you
fact
are.
there are going to be Scientologists watching this.
Yeah, no, it's very
So,
strange. I don't think anyone from the org is gonna see it, and maybe I'll say her name because I don't give a shit about her. But Kathy
yeah,
is probably gonna see it.
probably.
Um, she's the real OSA person, and so
That's right.
don't really mind saying her name.
Yeah,
But
no, and no, she's the PR director for the church. That she's the press liaison. She's the person who would be talking to the cameras if there was ever any story about it there in that
yeah,
area in Austin.
hmm yeah. So yeah, I'm glad that you poked that hole in that though, because I mean, I think that's important to point out
Yeah.
because there are like these ways that they can like people can logic their way out of these um, like pretty much everything. I would like sometimes try to throw like little wrenches in like not outright, but just like because I was new, I could get away with like questioning things
Yep.
and like trying to get people to see things a certain way. And there was always an answer. There was always an answer.
Can you give an example?
Um, yeah. So there was one guy, the front desk guy, Ben. I got super close with him actually, or I felt that we got pretty close. But I was talking to him one time, and I kind of uh, was bringing up some of the things that people had said about Miscavige and some of the abuses and stuff. And he was refuting it. He was saying like, "Oh, Miscavige is like a really small guy," and this guy was saying that Miscavige hit him. Like that doesn't make any sense. And I was like, okay, but like theoretically, if you found out that COB David Miscavige was an asshole, like a evil piece of shit, would you like leave? And he was like, well, I would think that he should be removed. And I was like, well, what if, but he was like, what did he say? He said, it's out reality for us to think that somebody would lie to that level. And I said, yes, but there are people like that. What if L. Ron Hubbard was one of those people? And he said, well, then if he was, I would leave, but Scientology is doing so well.
Yeah, that's one of the fallbacks. That's one of the fallback positions is we're expanding so much. I mean, I used to do this all the time to myself in my own head.
Mm-hmm.
I would deal with my own self-criticism of the organization because look at all the expansion. We're opening up all these churches, right? How could that possibly be happening if David Miscavige were such a bad guy? If this was all on, if this wasn't on the up and up, if he was not, forwarding L. Ron Hubbard's intention, then how could we have all these civic leaders and local politicians come to our events and say all these glowing words, right? And I was utterly clueless about how the real world works, so I didn't understand that that a photo op was something that politicians run to if they can do community relations and stuff. They don't have to know anything about Scientology in order to speak glowing words about it because the words they're speaking aren't even theirs; they're written for them. So I was I didn't know any of that stuff, so it was pretty easy for me to stay locked in the bubble with that, as you ran into when you were when talking to people. You'd never have a conversation like that on a Sea Org base, but I'm fascinated that it happens at the city level churches as openly as, well, what if? And they do get that, so they have to build up those defenses.
And this person was probably the only person that I would have those kinds of conversations with, because he was much more open to like the first time we had a conversation like that, nothing happened and everything was okay. So I continued to have conversations like that with him, but it was always kind of fruitless, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's why I say, you're not going to get anywhere talking stuff like that with cult members because that thought fortress is quite strong. You were tapping at the walls there. Hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? And it's like, nope, not making a dent. Not making a dent.
For sure.
Well, how far along did you have to get before it started becoming a problem to ask questions like that? Or talk about things like that? You mentioned you didn't really spread that around to other people, but I mean, was there ever any kind of other interaction like that? Or was there a point where it became clear that if you rock the boat, there might be repercussions?
So in the beginning, there was actually not as many intense conversations like I had with Ben. But there with the other members, there were I was given a lot of slack, because I felt that I had that slack because they did want me to come in. So I actually kind of fucked up a little bit, not even on purpose at the very beginning. The first, after I did my Dianetics session, I came back, I signed on for the Dianetics seminar, and there was one other person who was new that came in and did the seminar with me. And we did a Dianetics session with her, where I was like the auditor with the guy that was kind of teaching the seminar, looking over us or
supervising.
Yeah, he was supervising. And so
the seminar, just so people know, it's a 2-day deal. Yeah, you did the 2-day deal where you spend a few hours learning about Dianetics and how to do it on one another, and then you spend the rest of the weekend auditing each other on past moments of stress and trauma is the idea. So just so people are clear on what we're talking about.
Right. So that first day that I came in, there was a girl who had been introduced to Scientology by a Tinder date. And yeah, that's how. That's what she told me.
Okay, swipe right for Dianetics. All right, here we
Yeah.
go.
So, but she to me appeared like super vulnerable because she was telling me like we had this like lunch break and so we had a little bit of time to chat before our session. Like we had seen the videos and learned and stuff, and we had some time to chat before like we did the Dianetics on each other. And I was super curious, like, what the fuck are you doing here? You know, because people just don't really get into Scientology anymore. Um,
Well, I am going to ask you about that. Remind me because we'll take that up next, but please continue.
yeah, so I asked her about it. She told me that it was a Tinder thing, and she was like, "Oh, and I took this, I took the personality test, and it was spot on. And I've just been so like lost and like had so much trouble lately, and just been down, and I can't get out of it. And so I wanted to come and try this." And so after she had told me that, we did her Dianetics session, and it wasn't like a very serious memory or anything. It was like a pretty bland childhood like embarrassment story, but it was obviously I could tell that it was emotionally affecting her, and she was having to go over it over and over again. And it was like seeing that was and not being used to it and knowing that that person is in a vulnerable state,
Mm-hmm.
it really like affected me. Like I was very upset after it was over. Like immediately after it was over, I left, and that night I was having this like crisis of conscience, and I just was like, I can't let this person like, I can't let them get more into this. And so
Mm.
I texted her and I was like, hey, I just want you to like look at some of this stuff before you decide to keep going with this, because I think you should know that there's a lot of stuff about this group that's not so great, that's pretty well known. And
Mm.
so, yeah, so I texted that to her, and so I was like, well, I texted that to her. I That's pretty much it for me, I guess. Scrap the whole thing. And so I didn't show up for the next day, and because I was like, I know, like, I'm not going to show up and do this again once I told this person that it's bullshit. Um, so I was like kind of living with that, but then like I said, I walked by the org like every day, like it was on my like route. And I also worked at UT at the time, so I was like always there.
Right, because it's right
Yeah,
across the street from the university.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm walking by and I see, I'm going to call her Patricia. She's a very old, like long-term Scientologist that I got to know pretty well. She's in there. She was the one that sold me the book. She's in there. I see her sitting in there, and I was just like, ah, fuck it. I'll like go in and like ask her like what happened with the Dianetic session. And she's like super cold to me, like totally like not doesn't want to engage. But I was like, hey, I wanted to like apologize for not coming to that session, and like she's like, yeah, so and so told me what you texted her. And I was like, oh, snitch.
Of course.
But yeah, and I was like, ah. So I kind of was like in this moment where I was just decided, okay, I'm just gonna like apologize and say that people sent this to me and that they were worried about me, and so I sent it to her. And that and I made up this whole thing about like um this is, how I didn't necessarily believe it, and I still wanted to give it a chance. And so she like turned it all around and like let me come back. And
Wow.
yeah, and
Wow.
they set me up with my own like Dianetic session to make up for the Sunday that I missed. And I
Wow.
went back and did another one, and yeah,
Well, you had paid for the seminar, so I suppose
true.
that, they felt obligated. How,
But yeah,
how, okay, so you come in there, this girl comes in through Tinder. How many new people were coming around when you were doing because you ended up, I mean, there's the spoiler here is you've been involved in this for a couple of years as a result of this. So over
it's about
that
a year and a half.
time,
Yeah,
Yeah, so over that time, were there any other new people coming around? Did you see new faces every week, or what was that like?
I saw her. She was the first one, but then she left. She moved to Alaska. Um,
Wow.
yeah, she didn't take any other courses. And then my twin on the HQS, which I took later, he was the only other one the whole year and a half that I was involved.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, I knew it was bad, but
yeah.
wow, that's yeah. Austin,
Hmm.
Austin was an org that I managed for
Really?
years. Yeah, it's in the West U.S. I was West U.S. management. So,
You probably knew quite a bit of the people that I interacted
yeah,
with then.
probably.
Yeah.
But I was management from 1995 to about 2003, and
Okay.
and so I knew kind of the older crew also, right? But
Hmm.
Kathy, I mean, she'd
Yeah.
been around forever, right? Once you're sort of in that position,
Hmm.
you stick on it. So, and Austin had always been a bit of a goose egg org.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. The stats were zeros all the time on, and this is what I mean by goose eggs, right? It's
Yeah.
zeros, right? You see a graph and there's no line because it's all zeros along the
Yeah.
bottom. And you're like, ah, no
Yeah.
books
Well,
sold, no new people coming in, right? No,
yeah.
hardly any money, and you're just like, ah.
Putting
Uh,
in putting an org across an institute of higher education, maybe not the best idea.
Well,
Yeah.
Hubbard actually, this is funny. I knew this was going to come up during this, and I don't know that I don't think I've told you about this, but Hubbard actually wrote a specific set of orders for Austin based on the fact that that university was there. And he said that study tech was the bridge to society for Scientology back in this before there was really a Criminon or a Narcanon or applied scholastic. Before all that stuff
Hmm.
existed, really, back in the 70s, he said that study tech would be our bridge to society and that you could use, that misunderstood word stuff and how to study. There's a whole body of knowledge to this in Scientology. It's not a small thing. They've got
Yeah.
classes and they really take it very seriously. And they believe that they know how to teach somebody how to learn anything. And that they've got this whole little system set up for this. And so Hubbard said, use that to get to the university, right? Use that to form up a student club
Hmm.
and get them doing dianetics, right? Get these
Yeah.
college kids going. And back in the 70s, colleges were one of the mainline places for new Scientologists, late 60s and 70s. The Scientology totally marketed to that demographic. And really hit it good. I mean, so many of the Scientologists of the 70s and 80s and 90s who are now creating second and third gen Scientologists came in through college.
Yeah, well, my dad actually went into the org. Like, not it was in a different location at the time, but he was at UT in the '70s,
Yeah, there you
and
go.
he followed a pretty girl in there, and then they then
That's
they like freaked him out and
that's usually
didn't
how
come
it
back.
goes.
Yeah.
But that was the route, and Hubbard was very precise about it. And he actually personally wrote a letter to the executive director of Austin in the 70s when he had done this evaluation. And he said, "Look, man, you got to turn this org around. You got to get this thing going. Here's how to do it." And the idea was to utilize the university, and they never really did.
Yeah.
They could never really pull it off. They never
Hmm.
made that happen. And so we just ran Austin like any other org, but it was supposed to, in terms of individual attention, it was supposed to be doing that. It was supposed to,
Hmm.
that was supposed to be a feature, not a bug, having that university there.
Yeah, and there's an unimaginable amount of foot traffic that goes by there too, but
Yep.
no one ever goes in unless
Exactly.
like as a joke,
That's right.
you know.
Same as Santa Barbara. I mean, Santa Barbara was known throughout the Western United States as being the most foot traffic past the door of any of the West U.S. organizations.
Hmm.
The only ones in the world that were getting better foot traffic were New York and I think Milano. Milano had some insane kind of body traffic thing they were doing, and then Milano had learned how to catch that fire. they were bringing people in by the bucket load over there in Italy. Italy was taken off with Scientology, and we were like, well, why can't we? And we would, you know, and when I worked in Santa Barbara, the answer was obvious because none of us wanted to go out there and talk to those people. And also, many of them were tourists. So, you know, you sell them a book, but, you know, they're not coming back. And it takes a lot. Sometimes it can take an hour or two to sell a book. So, you spend your whole day doing that, and you're not getting anybody. So, anyway, just those, you're bringing back old memories for me here.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's interesting. They one of the first things that they asked me actually was this was Patricia, the one she'd been in Scientology since 1968. And you would actually know her because we talked about her son, who she doesn't talk to anymore.
Yeah.
That was in the Sea Org. But one of the first things that she asked me was, did you see the South Park episode? And I was like, nope, never seen it. Don't know what you're talking about.
Do you think she believed you?
I don't know.
But she accepted your answer?
Accepted it. Yeah,
okay.
She accepted it, yeah. But then we later talked about The Master, and I was like talking about how I had seen it and how I liked it. And everyone else in the room was like, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. And she said that she had seen it.
Really?
And so, yeah. And so we had a little discussion about that. And this is what I'm talking about, things I could get away with earlier on.
Right, right.
Like having a discussion about The Master.
Well, when you brought that up, I'm curious, actually. Tell me about that. Do you remember anything she said about it?
She wanted to, like, sort of theorize, like, who in the movie was supposed to be who. Like, if Freddie was... you know, she knows a lot about, like, Hubbard's history, I guess. So she was theorizing that he was a certain early defector. And so she wanted to, like, talk about that theory. And then she said that she didn't like the wife character. And I think that because that movie sort of separates Hubbard's personalities into, like, the charming guy, and then his wife is, like, his other side. Even though, like, in reality, like, Hubbard was both of those things.
That's one way of looking at it, I suppose. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way because I see both sides in Philip Seymour Hoffman's portrayal of the Hubbard character.
Definitely. But I think the more obvious, like, harsh, like,
yes, the
harshness is more obvious in the wife.
Well, it is, but that's actually how Mary Sue was too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she wasn't rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was not. She was ruthless, hardcore. She could be a real authoritarian.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Patricia had said, you know, she hated that character. She didn't like that character.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I can't remember exactly what was said about the whole movie, but it was just the rest of the people in the group were like, no, I've never seen it. And Patricia was like, I've seen it. And
so she piped right in.
Kind of she's a little rebellious. Like, I liked that about her personality. She was kind of a little bit willing to.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny the different levels of experience you'll find with Scientologists. Mm-hmm. Some of them are a little more willing to get out there, and others are meek and mild, and you don't hear them peep, even peep much. So
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So again, was there a point where along the line of the classwork you were doing and the auditing work you were doing, was there a point where you felt, for whatever reason, whether it was defined or not, that, okay, now I've crossed a line where if I'm critical now, or if I start speaking up or saying stuff now, this could be bad, or there could be bad consequences. I shouldn't do that. What was that? Did you reach that point?
Yeah. I think probably if I could ballpark it, I'd say when Hurricane Harvey happened, and I helped out with some of the volunteer minister stuff. Someone that was there from out of town asked me if I was a Scientologist, because I was, like, going to go in there and, like, help. And she was like, "Are you a Scientologist?" And I said, "Yes." And I could tell that like after, it wasn't because I had said that to her, but I could tell that because I felt compelled to say that to her, that something had shifted, that I didn't feel comfortable saying, no, I'm not, like, I felt that at that point, I was sort of expected to like have the answers that I was looking for now.
Okay.
Like, not that I couldn't ask any more questions. It's just that like you've asked your questions. Like that time is done.
Right. You're not a newbie anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And that was about 7 months in.
Okay. Yeah, sounds about right. That actually sounds about right.
Yeah.
As far as, my experience with new people and sort of easing them along. Did you feel eased along?
I a little bit. It's hard to tell what they like. I think different people felt differently about me.
Explain. Like what do you mean?
So some people seem to be taking a very like trained, obvious trained path with me, like doing it by the book, the way they spoke to me and the way they like drew me in. Other people, maybe it's because it wasn't part of their job or whatever, seemed to talk to me like just another person. And those are the people that I ended up getting close to because I didn't feel like they were trying to sell things to me, even though they were.
Right. They were a little smoother about it.
Yeah.
Well, there's the natural sort of personality that just wants to be friends, and then they'll sell you stuff. And then there is this is my job, and I am now going to do my job, sort of thing. And we should have a separation between us. And this should be understood as far as what roles we have here, so interesting.
Yeah, the majority of my interaction with people, the people that I got to know really well, were staff members. I didn't really get to know people that weren't on staff that well. Because those were the people that had an interest in talking to me,
Well, that's interesting. Were you going to services during the day hours or during the nights and weekends?
Nights and weekends, but the thing is that the job that I had at UT, I was someone that could leave I wasn't in an office. I was like going around campus, tagging, putting like tags on expensive equipment. And so I could leave and like not have anything to do that day. So I could go into the org during the day and just shoot the shit like whenever I wanted to.
Okay.
So the three people at the front, the two older ladies, one who had been in since like 1959, the other 1968, and then Ben, the front desk guy, I could sit there and talk to them as much as I wanted to. And they were like, they didn't have shit to do. I mean, they did, but like...
But they didn't really. I mean, all of it's sort of just busy work. It's not like, there's a whole lot they're doing that are really keeping the doors open.
What? So I would just
that's interesting because those three guys weren't around during the night and weekend hours. Is that right?
Well, the two ladies were not around, but Ben was on course a lot. So he would do. Gosh, he was doing full-time staff, and he was driving for Uber, and he was doing the SRD.
Okay, survival rundown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll get to that.
So he was pretty much constantly
in the org doing stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Did we don't have to get into the specifics of him. So the foundation, because the church is the reason I'm asking or making this differentiation day foundation is the foundation, the nights and weekend hours. Same building, same desks, but different crew of people.
Yeah.
Right? Two different organizations, different executive directors, different executives, different crew. So you have Austin Day, and then you have Austin Foundation, and different income streams. So, that when they're making money and doing services nights and weekends, then the day guys aren't around. Although they might be on course or doing their auditing. and then flip it for the other way around is how it's supposed to go. So it's interesting. You were doing most of your services in foundation, but most of what we're talking about is with the day org guys.
Yeah, I didn't really ever think about that, but I was interacting socially with the day org people for the most part. But I mostly for services and stuff, and for like getting stuff sold to me, the ED of the foundation was who I mostly like spoke with.
The executive. So you were speaking with the head of the organization to sell you stuff.
She would get involved with something. She would text me like, oh my God, like to get me on Student Hat. Like at a certain point, they wanted, like my twin on the HQS was like in and out of town like all the time, so they wanted to get me on something else. And so her and the day ED pushed to get me on Student Hat.
Of course. Was it free with any other major service, or did they want to sell it to you? Did you have to pay money for it?
No, they wanted me to pay $2,000 for a Student Hat. And I was like,
it used to be free. They would literally give away the Student Hat if you took it with any other major service.
No.
Now it's $2,000. Nobody paid for the Student Hat. It used to be like just, you'd buy the tapes, you'd buy the lectures, and you buy the materials, but you didn't have to buy the course. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's funny. That's interesting how they changed that up for $2,000 to teach you this class about, to basically create and give you an OCD disorder regarding looking up words in dictionaries is basically the end result of that course. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So not a lot of any social interaction with the foundation guys.
I'm trying to. Well, you know what? Actually, because the foundation, one of the foundation guys was the student at UT, and he came over to the co-op one time, and I did talk with him a lot because he was the only kind of leftist liberal guy in the whole org, and so
really,
yeah, and his brother was I can't remember what he was. His brother was the one that, like, later on when I got in trouble, did all the conditions with me.
Okay.
And so both of them I interacted with quite a bit, and I think they were foundation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you just dropped a little interesting bomb there that I want to pick up and talk about a little bit, and that was the politics of this group of people. Now this is Texas. Yeah. Texas is, I think, a lot like Colorado. A lot like in that there is a center, there's a one place where there's a lot of liberals and progressives, and then the rest of the state's very red, very conservative, right? Colorado is very much that, although I believe the Denverites pretty much outnumber the rest of the people in the rural areas around the state and the other cities around the state. So Colorado is considered purple. I think. I don't think it's considered blue yet. But Austin is sort of the liberal progressive stronghold of Texas, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
So it's interesting to me that being the case, a bunch of conservatives are on staff. Why do you think that would be?
There's certain aspects of reality that I tend to believe are lean a little bit more liberal that can be easily ignored sometimes by people that are conspiracy minded, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to. I was a little bit surprised at how conservative everyone was, but
Trump supporters, or okay, not. Were there any like old school GOP who weren't really Trumpers but claim to be conservative? Did you get that deep with it?
I don't think we ever really talked about that. The only thing that I saw was rah Trump, type stuff.
Right, rah Trump. Yep. Yeah. It doesn't surprise me in any way. Did you notice while listening to how much you were exposed to Hubbard? You mentioned the HQS course. That's the Hubbard Qualified Scientologist course. It's a beginning level course for people to really get their feet wet with Scientology and get a kind of a little good sprinkling of all of it. You do the auditing, you do a bunch of reading, you listen to Hubbard. Did through that course, and then you got onto the survival rundown, I think, eventually, right?
No, I never, because that
Oh,
was
you never
like,
started it.
no, because I paid $500 for the HQS, which was like a big, like, I almost didn't do it. And I had the money at the time. I was like, another one of those moments where I was like, all right, if I want to keep going, then I have to do this. But like, my line was really like, I was not going to pay $2,000 for anything.
Right.
Like, I was definitely,
Right. And that's again the gradient scale, the graduated scale of
Yeah.
services, right? You come in. How much was the Dianetics seminar? Was it like $50?
It was actually 120.
120. Okay, so 120 for that.
Mhm.
After you've bought your first book and got your free session.
hmm
Okay, so they start you with a book, then $120, then $500.
Well, actually, I took. If you want to get into it, I can go more chronologically because there's a lot of shit that happened like in between like HQ at
Well,
like
no, I
the
want
Dynamics and
to.
HQS.
Let me finish this other thing first, and then we can get to that. But I just commenting on the increasing price scale of the services as you go, as you're getting
Right.
deeper and deeper in, and it apparently picks up pretty fast. Now, did you listen to Hubbard? Did you ever listen to Hubbard lecture or talk?
Yeah, because I was very much interested in learning. Like I said, the main purpose that I was there for was still on my mind. I was wanting to see like what people were learning.
Mm-hmm.
So I did listen to a shitload of Hubbard.
Did you notice his politics?
Yes.
How would you describe it?
I would describe him as like someone who's conservative that wants to appear liberal.
Uh-huh.
I maybe libertarian a bit.
There we go.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly the direction that Hubbard skewed. And pretty like libertarian conservative, more not libertarian progressive.
Right, yeah.
He was pretty hardcore when it came to sexual values, very Midwest sort of conservative 1950s values with sexuality, with
Even
certainly
though
with
he had some questionable things that would maybe suppress things that would come out in his writing.
well, that's the funny thing about Hubbard. Is I'm talking about what he said rather than what he
Yeah.
did. Because what he did, he was a randy little, he was out there. The guy was a total serial, philanderer. I mean, hell, he was a bigamist. He married two women at the same time for a year.
Yeah.
He was married to two different women, and they didn't even know it. I mean, it was crazy.
And
But he's,
I'm also referring to Dianetics, the kind of weird sexual shit that's in that book.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway from some of that?
Um, it was just very strange. I was like, why would someone's mind go there? Like,
He
like,
talks about attempted abortions a lot, doesn't he?
yeah, like he's just and Ben came to a party with me where I like said to him, I was like, you know what? I really didn't like Dianetics. Like I just kind of hated that book. And he was like, he's raised in Scientology. He was like, I've never read it. And I was like, what?
Yep.
You have to read this book. It's fucked up.
It's fucked up. It is.
Like,
It is, man. It is a slog to get through that
Yeah.
book. I
It is.
could not do it until I was on the solo auditor course. So I think that was well into my Sea Org. Yeah, that was when I got back onto it and finally completed Dianetics. I think it was after I was off after management. I think that was in the 2000s that I finally read it.
See, that's crazy to me because, you're so deep into Scientology at that point and you haven't read this foundational
That's right.
book.
That's right. I mean, I
And,
knew the principles of it because I had seen the videos. I'd read Evolution of a Science. I had read Original Thesis. I had read. I'd watched the Dianetics DVD many times. I mean, I understood the concepts that Hubbard was communicating in the book. what I had been missing out on was all the colorful anecdotes and
Yeah, exactly.
of attempted abortions and women cheating on their husbands and
Hmm.
all this dramatic content that he said was contained in little neonatal engrams. It was crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, anyway, point I think where I was going with that is I was kind of curious about your takeaway on Hubbard's politics because I think it influences Scientologists a great deal. It certainly did me and
Hmm.
others I knew in Santa Barbara, which is a California liberal bastion. And we were that org skewed pretty conservative.
Hmm.
And that was my experience with Scientology staff going around in the Western United States, is that they were a pretty conservative lot. And I came out of Scientology, a lot of conservative values, that I've since had to re-question as part of the whole process. But
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to like insult anyone, but I just feel that like a lot of the libertarian ideas that are in Scientology are you have to ignore ideas of empathy in order to
hmm
go along with them, and that's a requirement in Scientology too. Like you can't empathize with people too much because if you do, then you'll start looking out for their best interests, and that's not exactly always in line with what Scientology wants.
that's exactly right.
So,
How much did that make sense to you when you were in, quote unquote, right? When you were reading this stuff and applying it or looking at how it was applied around you, did that seem like these people were on the right page, or did it seem like something was off with that?
in the sense, like on the right page, like what do you mean?
Oh, well, as far as did you think that, this idea of Hubbard, for example, talks about sympathy, like it's the least that you could do for somebody is sympathize with them. Like if you can't
Hmm.
do anything else with them, fine, sympathize with them, right? Like it's this
Hmm.
sort of last resort if everything else has failed. It's a fairly, like you said, kind of cold or sort of compassionless view.
Hmm.
That I think I was talking about like that, that because that attitude is cultivated in a way as part of the Scientology package.
Yeah, what I saw was, and this was one of the reasons why, like, I eventually like couldn't stomach it anymore, is that because I had come to care about a lot of these people, I got so sick of seeing them not advocate for themselves. Um,
Wow.
they wouldn't advocate for each other, and they wouldn't advocate for themselves. When they were tired, when they like or overworked, whenever they didn't, they weren't, they clearly weren't having a good time, or they were being pressured to give more money for this sort of pie in the sky idea of this org, and like, the pressure was always on for everyone there, and no one ever seemed to feel that it was within their rights to say, fuck this, like I don't feel like doing this. And that was really frustrating to me because I think, and it was obvious that the foundation for that is absolutely in Hubbard's texts. Um, he primes you to ignore those feelings of um, self-interest, even though you're supposedly like becoming more of an individual. Like you really are sublimating all of your needs to this organization, and he prepares you to do that.
That's interesting that you say that because I hadn't thought about it that way, but I see exactly what you're saying, and I couldn't agree more. I wonder how many things I read or listened to over the many years that I was in that actually primed me for that exact point of view, and without me being totally aware of it even happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens a lot with high control groups.
Mm.
That's kind of that's what they rely on to, in my view, that's what they rely on to get people to stay, because if you start to think that you deserve a break or like whatever, you might just leave.
Exactly the point. That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
right. Don't make a very, very effective slave if you have free will.
Yeah.
Doesn't work so well, you know.
Right.
What did you think about Hubbard's mantra about, how in order you have to first be willing to be controlled before you can control others? Did you run across that one in your HQS studies or auditing studies?
Yeah, so they gave us a set of books. There's Fundamentals of Scientology, Problems of Work, the Dianetics book, and oh, I forget the other one. But so I read all these books, and I noticed that in Fundamentals of Scientology, when it's teaching you about auditing,
Was that
it
Scientology, the fundamentals of thought, by the way?
yes,
Yeah,
that's what it's called.
cool.
Um, it kind of sets you up to um, expect certain things from the auditing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when those things happen, you think it's like you might be under the illusion that it's working, but
Right.
it's already set up to do that.
Right.
You're set up to have those conclusions. And so when you have them, it's like, oh, wow. But it's just because the idea was already implanted in your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right,
Mhm.
and that's why I speak about pre and post hypnotic suggestion being part of the process, and indoctrination being part of the process. They prime you for what's supposed to happen in an auditing session, and it makes it a very different procedure. It makes it a very different experience than if you went in not really knowing what to expect,
Mhm.
and then this process was done on you. If you didn't have any idea of what this was doing or why, you wouldn't put up with it for very long. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, and I would get frustrated with my twin because like I ended up spending a lot of time like in the HQS. So I sacrificed time to be there. And I could see that like whenever I was auditing him the way it works where we go back and forth, I could see what his end phenomenon was supposed to be. And all I had to do was remember what that was supposed to be for whenever I got audited and then come up with it, you know. And
Okay.
I was irritated
Okay.
that he didn't see that because like whenever I was ready to be done with it, I was like, I just thought of this thing. And I would say it and he'd be like, call the soup over and like, okay, check. She got the EP or
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Um,
And they call it for people who are really wondering what the hell we're talking about right now, end phenomena, or EP, is the end result that you're looking for in a Scientology auditing process or a Dianetics auditing process. And there are different EPs, different kinds of auditing will give you different end results, but you have to keep doing the auditing until you hit that process's end result or end phenomena, the things that will happen at the end.
mhm,
And these things usually consist of four generalized ideas or statements or things that are going to happen. You're going to say something that's going to be this, new realization about life. You're going to feel very good. You're going to have what's called very good indicators.
yeah, I forgot about those.
I feel so good.
Yeah.
And because it's a very, very different experience when you're saying, oh, wow, I didn't know that about myself. Versus,
Yeah.
oh my God, I didn't know that about myself. Wow, right? Like that's very good indicators versus the very bad indicators of you're sitting there in tears.
Mhm.
So part of the end result or a part of the EP is very good indicators. And on an E meter, the needle is supposed to be swinging in a particular way. It's called a floating needle. And
Mhm.
you're supposed to have what's called a release. This weight off of your chest or shoulders or head, so to speak, of mental charge is supposed to be gone because you've done this auditing. So
Yeah.
yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, it's right there. Whenever like it took, I don't think he realized it was there, and he would get tired of doing the auditing too. And I just wanted to be like, this is what.
But you're not supposed to fake it till you make it. You're supposed to make it. So
I
you're
guess,
supposed to persist, right? I mean, you're right. The auditing's boring as hell. It's did you if I said it's trance induction, would that statement, would that be something you would agree with, or what do you think?
I need that. I got an MU there.
How I gave you a misunderstood. So trance, right, is a semi-conscious, if consciousness or awareness of present time situations and your current environment is a spectrum where you can be lost in space, lost in your head, thinking your thoughts, dreaming, let's say, even totally involved in it, all the way to, you are in the moment, completely mindful right now in the here and now, right?
Right, yeah.
So trance is where the awareness of the outside environment or what's going on around you is lessened. Your attention, it's very, very focused on, a very small or very particular, very specific thing. Kids watching TV go into trance states. Kids playing video games, anybody playing video games, people watching movies go into trance states. Hypnotism is a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah.
But trance induction would be any process that can induce a trance state. So that's what I mean by that.
I see. Okay, yeah. I was hearing those two words as like one word together, but I see what you're
Trance induction, yeah.
I would say definitely, because I like had probably about 3 moments in objective auditing where I just went somewhere else, and kind of like I would wake up, like I was like had just taken a nap or fallen asleep and just wake up first.
Yep.
And it was very strange, and that happened like 3 times.
Yeah, that's deep trance induction right there, or deeper than usual. When you're passing out, when you feel like you're waking up.
Yeah.
Definitely so.
And it's funny because the training that we do, like with the HQS, the training for how to do the auditing comes before the actual auditing. And so one of the things that you're trained on to do is, if the person that you're auditing is not following your command, you can physically move them to do it.
That's right.
And so we had been drilled on that a bunch for like hours and hours. And whenever it came time, one of the times that we were doing auditing, I was the pre-clear. I was getting audited. We were doing the go back, like look at that wall, walk over to that wall, touch that wall, turn around, yada, yada, yada. So I'm doing that several times in a row. And something, I just sort of like go out, like I'm just like not there. And I feel like my twin like grab my shoulders and start moving me, and I was like, it like brought me back, and I was like, what the fuck? Like
that's right.
Yeah, it was just the first time it happened, it was kind of disturbing, because I didn't quite know the people around me very well. So like my twin was the only person that wasn't a Scientologist, and like that was the only moment where I like was scared of Scientology, is because I was like, oh, my wits were like not about me at that time, and I'm like in a cult.
That's right. Your situational awareness was suddenly, wait a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a thing. That's a thing. And the problem, one of the problems with trance induction is that you are in a more suggestible state. Right? Because the things that are being said to you, the things that you are perceiving, either visually, audibly, smelling, all of it, all your perceptions, it's kind of going in a bit subconsciously. You're not necessarily aware of all the things that are being said to you or that are being done to you. And that can be scary. And like you said, if you're in the middle of a cult situation, these are not people who, they believe that they have your best interests at heart. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is a nefarious bunch of, of shady characters. They're regular people. But the system that they are part of is a high control authoritarian system. It is a snitch culture. It is it is a high control group. So, do you trust this group? Even if all the people are great, right? Can you really trust what this group is about and its policies and directives and what it's doing to you? And they, of course, the answer to that question on my channel is hell no.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I never felt like unsafe. Like I always felt like, it's a cult, but it's sort of established. And if I'm not buying into it, I'm not in danger of letting them do something to me that's not okay, which I don't think they would do anyway. But then in that moment, whenever I was like sort of went out of like consciousness, that's whenever I was like, oh wow, okay, like I am in a room with a bunch of people who most would consider cult members. And that, for a second, for me, I was like, okay, that actually is a little scary. I maybe should like pay more attention to what's going on.
Excellent. Well, I believe that was a moment of good insight. Because,
thank you.
Well, seriously, because people might listen to this or hear about other people who have gone undercover, and it's happened, that people have snuck into the Sea Org and people have snuck into Scientology and brought cameras and done things, and it always ended up that they get caught. There's there is no end scenario there where they successfully make it all the way to Miscavige's inner circle and blow the whistle on it all, because we're talking about years of deep cover in order to make something like that happen. So this auditing stuff, at the level you were doing it at, right, in a public course room with a twin, it's just very lightweight sort of auditing. You are already experiencing trance induction and, moments of being out of it.
Yeah.
Well, all I can say is, as you continue doing auditing up the bridge, that only continues and, in fact, increases in severity.
Yeah, I was curious about like how deep that goes, because I would not call what I went through light, but like on the scale of what's on offer, it is. So I think the fact that like you're both getting this auditing, and then there are people calling you and checking in on you. Like I would have Sea Org members call me and see how the auditing was going, And so there's this constant like, what is this doing for you? Like, where is it going? Like, and there's this, it's like there's like a Cyclops eye on you at all times.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Eye of Sauron.
Yeah.
No, it's called a case supervisor, actually.
Yeah.
Because there is somebody overseeing your auditing who is not your auditor. It's not a random thing, what you're doing in Scientology with the auditing. And I've done whole podcasts on that. We won't repeat all that here. Hey, everyone. They say that knowledge is power and knowing is half the battle. And you know what? I agree. And thanks to the Great Courses Plus, we get to tap into that power with just a click. With this streaming service, you unlock unlimited access to objective, reliable, and very interesting information on virtually any subject, learning from the brightest minds around the world. You benefit from their years of experience and unique insight to help formulate our own knowledge and perspectives. With over 40,000 five-star reviews on the Great Courses Plus, you truly can master so many skills and subjects. I've said it before, and I'm recommending again, that in these times of political and social upheaval, one of the best courses you can do right now is called Fighting Misinformation, Digital Media Literacy. We are being bludgeoned with data right now, and it's really important you know how to discern fact from fiction. Tap into this power of knowledge. Join me and thousands of other learners and sign up for the Great Courses Plus. And my listeners can check out any course or lecture for free today. That's free access to the entire library. Don't wait any longer. Sign up today using my special URL, thegreatcoursesplus.com/critical. That's thegreatcoursesplus.com/critical. Interested in, okay, so you had a few of these sessions, you did this objective auditing, you did recall auditing, you did dianetics auditing where you're supposedly going back and erasing this crap completely. So what's your takeaway from all of these different, sure, lower level, but still valid and absolutely real Scientology experiences? It wasn't Scientology light. You did the real thing. So, so let's not, while it might be that some of it was on training wheels, it's still riding a bike. You're still getting down the road. So, so with enough of those stupid analogies, what's your takeaway from it all as far as your auditing, as far as what you think about auditing?
I mean, I don't know. I've heard people say that they have gotten some good things out of it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was, sometimes it was fun. Like whenever there was like some jokey, like interactions, there were, we would have like, there were parts of it that were fun because the personalities that I was interacting with, the, Soup, was the kid from UT, and then there's some other people in there, and plus my twin, like we goofed around a little bit and it was kind of fun. But for the most part, it was boring as hell, and I felt like I didn't get anything out of it.
Cool.
Like even the I took the, what is it called? The communication course, the TRs or whatever.
Yeah.
And
you did the basic courses, communications courses, success through communications course.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's 21 drills or exercises that you do with another person, all centered around the subject of communication and learning how to communicate with that person, both talking to them and hearing them and dealing with, handling things they say. So just to let the audience know what we're talking about here. So
cool. Yeah. So I took that before I took the HQS, and I did that one with a Scientologist, and he was telling me all about how his son took it and it like helped him. And meanwhile, like I knew someone that had dated his son, and she was like, "Oh, he's fucked up." But like,
wow.
Yeah. Like there was this is like, I'm not going to go on this tangent all the way, but like they tried to like kidnap her and get her into the org like twice. And then she was like, see ya.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But so his son like had taken it, and he was talking about how it helped him talk to girls or whatever. And I took it with him, and I remember I was in therapy at the time, and I was talking to my therapist about this, like my impressions on it. And she was like, she was like, honestly, like it's such a, I can't remember exactly what she said about it, but it was like, it's a manipulative way of approaching communication, because you're approaching it as in like, you're trying to present yourself in a way that will get you what you want, and not really trying to like just be yourself.
Correct.
Yeah. And so I don't think that is necessarily helpful communication wise. And maybe it is for some people if it like gets them to think that they now have more confidence and then they're able to go forward. Like some of this is placebo effect. I think the auditing, it gives you the idea that like you're doing something to improve your life, and therefore like if you're doing that, then you might actually feel better for a while. I feel like that's possibly true.
Oh, well, you're picking yourself up by your bootstraps all the time in Scientology. You're right. I was always mustering my intention. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna gear up for this. Right? I'm gonna be tone 40 now.
Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna positive postulate this thing. Right. I'm gonna make this happen. And it's really just kind of, psyching yourself up. I was doing that constantly, and I thought of it as pushing my bank away. Right. I'm pushing my case away. I got to be the Thetan here. I got to be the one in charge, right? I got to be the big man. So
Hmm.
that was how my cognitive dissonance has sort of dealt with the problems of life.
Yeah, and that's what you're describing about yourself is what I saw a lot of people doing with themselves, and that's one of the things that was very difficult for me to witness, and that I have come away with like a little bit scarred by, because it upset me to see people doing that to themselves. Because I would see, like with Ben, I would see like that he was really tired all the time.
Hmm.
Um,
It's
he was,
exhausting.
yeah, he's a young guy. He's 23. And I remember at my age, at 23, like how much fun I was having, and like I was dating, I was doing all kinds of things. It was one of the greatest times of my life. And I saw this person who was that same age just on this hamster wheel. And then I would catch like glimpses of him like struggling with it, and then putting on like a brave face about it. And like I was able to see that, like it was just very obvious to me, and it just was extremely upsetting, because I was like, you're not supposed to be having to go through this right now. You There's so much about life that you could be experiencing right now, and I can't tell anyone how to live their lives, but like I know that like this is not the best situation for you.
No, it's really sad, and you would literally, probably be could have said the exact same things to me
Hmm.
when I was 23, bouncing around in Santa Barbara, same way he's bouncing
Yeah.
around in Austin. Just living this kind of pathetic life and thinking that they're saving the world. Making a big dent, really making a
Yeah.
difference.
Well, he was coming up on re-signing his staff contract, and I was trying so hard to get him not to.
Wow.
And the thing is that he was like prime candidate for Sea Org, but he had a relative who was like in the FBI, so he couldn't.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. So I'm surprised
so
they let him on staff with that.
yeah,
Actually, it's kind of, well, good old Kathy.
yeah. Well, she checked it out, I'm sure.
Yeah, took one for the team.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, interesting. So then you said something earlier that I must pursue, which was, how was it that you're on course? You're this lowly new Scientology person coming up the line in this, pathetically small org. Like on the biggest night or biggest day, how many people were on course with you?
Hmm.
What was a big day in the course room?
No more than 25 people. No
Okay.
more than that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Including in the study room and the whatever the other thing is called.
The other thing?
The two different rooms, the one where you study the books, and
Oh,
the
the
one where
theory and the practical.
yeah.
Yeah. Between both course rooms. Yeah. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. Yeah, it's all one classroom. They divide their course rooms into people who are reading, and that's more of a
Hmm.
library kind of situation versus the practical where people are practicing what they're going to do with auditing, and that's a loud course room.
Hmm.
Um, were there one soup going back and forth, or was it two supervisors?
I
One
think there
for
was two soups.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty small
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, how was it that you're in that situation and you're being contacted by the Sea Org? Because you're in Austin. There's no Sea Org. Are there any Sea Org members in the org?
No, later on, some came to visit while they were like getting their ideal org stuff together.
Okay.
But I didn't see a Sea Org member actually at the org until probably like 10 months in.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
how were they contacting you? Because that means they were calling you from where? LA or Flag or.
I was getting calls from LA and Flag.
Wow. How did they get
Yeah.
your name and what were they calling you about?
So the first person that called me was, you know him, Tim, Burke.
Yes.
You said that you know him. Yeah.
Yeah. Was he running the call center?
I guess so. I think he was calling me from LA.
Yeah. Yeah. He was posted in the call center out there.
Yeah, so he was calling me a lot, and he was the first person to call me.
Really? And
Um,
how did he introduce himself? How did he describe himself as a Sea Org member to you? This was a new thing for you at that moment, right?
yeah, like I don't know what happened exactly, but I mean, maybe it might help to explain that at one point, I'd never told you this, I don't think.
Hmm.
At one point, I joined staff
I
for
don't
like,
think you. No, you did not tell me that. Okay.
okay, I was on it for like a day.
Okay.
But so they might have gotten a lead from that, someone that was more serious or something, and
Okay.
that's why they were calling me.
Was he calling you about sales or about the Sea Org?
He was calling me, let's see, I think he was trying to sell me stuff.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he was trying to sell
that
me
makes
stuff.
more sense to me that he would be
Yeah,
doing that.
yeah.
Interesting. So, okay, so you're this up and comer in Austin. He gets your name. He starts
Mhm.
calling you.
Yeah, and at first he just wanted to know how the auditing was going. And he would contact me, he would call me quite a bit, and chat me up about the auditing. And then he started introducing, I think, things that he wanted to sell. Although for some reason, right now, I can't remember what he was trying to sell me.
It doesn't matter. He was just trying to sell
Yeah,
you books or lectures.
yeah, yeah.
Was it and was it books and oh, well, let me ask you this. Was it books and lectures or was it services?
It might have been services.
Really?
Yeah, because the other major Sea Org person that I ended up talking to was uh I'm gonna call her Sarah because she's uh I don't know if she would get in trouble or
Sure.
anything, but uh she started calling me because she wanted to sell me the books. But then once she sold me the books, which I actually didn't pay for, they she got someone else to pay for them. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at that point, like she was trying to get a yes out of me so bad that like she got someone else to pay for it, and she just had to get me to say, sure, they can pay for it.
Sure, they can pay and ship me the
Yeah,
books.
yeah,
Was she the one at Flag?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So, okay, so you got Tim calling you from LA, you got Sarah calling you from Flag,
Hmm.
trying to sell you stuff while you're doing your services in Austin. Did it ever come up like did the Austin ever have anything to say about that? Wouldn't they have wanted to sell you those things?
I don't even know if they knew that they were calling me because like I didn't have an occasion to like bring it up.
Huh.
Like I
Huh.
yeah, I didn't have I don't think there was a reason like why I would say, oh yeah, like Tim called me or like Sea Org people are calling me. Like it just didn't come up.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I don't know if they even knew that that was happening.
Well, were they trying to sell you books and stuff at the same time? Or were they so, oh, we're just happy to have you on service right now. We're going to leave you alone for a little while.
Yeah, I think maybe they were leaving me alone. I mean, they were trying to sell me on like student hat and stuff like that,
Right,
and
right.
um, but yeah, they mentioned buying the books, but they weren't pushing it real hard. So it was LA and Flag that were really pushing hard for these certain things. I think Tim actually might have been trying to get me to join IAS.
Oh,
That's
okay.
yeah.
He was trying to get donations for the IAS. So the first thing they're going to do, International Association of Scientologists. It's the
Mhm.
membership organization for Scientology. And
Yeah.
there are levels of status that you pay for. And
Mhm.
so after you've gotten your initial lifetime membership, what is it, 2,000, 5,000?
I have no
I
idea.
think it's 5,000 now. It used to be 2,000. And once you have your lifetime, then everything is gravy on top of that and you are earning status. Can they
Mhm.
have these, patrons of the IAS and all kinds of other fun titles getting up to like platinum gloritorious or patron of the honors of the universe or something. I mean,
Yeah.
they have these trophies that are literally like 7 feet tall that they give to people who've given them like $1 million,
Yeah.
and there are far too many people who have given Scientology $1 million. It's pretty
It's
scary
crazy.
actually.
Yeah.
So okay, so he's trying to he's trying to game you for that, and then trying to
Mhm.
sell you stuff. All right, wow,
Yeah.
wow, interesting that it didn't take that long. It took years before I found out what the Sea Org was. or was
Um,
contacted by a Sea Org member, except for the Sea Org members who were in the Santa Barbara church. There were a couple who were there running the place. But that
okay.
was the only Sea Org that were around. They weren't
Mhm.
salespeople. They were staff at the org, so they had their jobs to do. They weren't talking to
Mhm.
me. I was just another guy on course.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that they contacted me, but I was like kind of excited because I was like, oh, like people from like big boy Scientology are like
Yeah,
talking to me, you know?
yeah. No, it's
Um,
definitely that's the core, man.
yeah,
You're getting. Yeah, the spider was reaching out to you from the center
yeah,
of the web.
yeah. So,
Interesting. Did you, in your conversations with either of those people, did you ever bring up some of the stuff that you were bringing up to the staff as far as throwing some sharp and pointed questions their direction about Hubbard or Scientology or anything?
uh, with Tim, I didn't. With Sarah, because after she sold me the books, I continued to talk with her. She would call me and uh I didn't know like why we were talking because I was like, you sold me the books already, you know? So like I started doing the same thing I did with Ben, where like I was just kind of like shooting the shit with this person. And then I would start to like say, I think I actually asked you like what should I do? Like
Mm, mm,
this person is like talking to me and like I don't even understand why, but like, should I like keep talking to them? Should I like try to say something to them? And you were like, go for it, you know?
mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think your suggestion was to just like get them to talk about their life outside of Scientology. And so I ended up having sort of like a longer conversations with this person about like what they did. Like, uh, I think they joined the Sea Org like when they were 17, and yeah, it's just crazy. And but I was like asking them like, well, what did you want to do before you joined the Sea Org, and like um, getting them to talk about that kind of thing. I didn't really talk about my uh, doubts about Scientology until
Mm-hmm.
our last conversation, and that was the last time I ever spoke to that person.
Right.
Mhm.
And that was sort of your Hail Mary because it appeared at that point that um, that there was going to be a severing of the line anyway.
Yeah, she called me after I hadn't been in contact with people for like a couple of months or more.
Hmm.
And she wanted to talk about, I don't know if they sent her to do that because they knew that we had a like correspondence or like what
It
that
could have
was.
been
But
completely random. That's the weird thing about it. It's hard to tell,
yeah.
in terms of what they were trying to do. Was it a group
Hmm.
coordinated effort or because these guys just call it like you've already experienced. Tim's calling you from LA. Nobody at Austin
Hmm.
knows. She's calling you from Flag. Nobody in Austin knows. Like what's,
Hmm.
so there can be random coincidences in this world as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and they the people that were trying to recruit me for the Sea Org, which is eventually another group that was calling me, they didn't know I was in ethics trouble.
Right.
So
Right. And the recruiters
um
often don't until the last second because they're sitting there trying to recruit you.
mhm. Yeah.
And so now let's talk about the ethics trouble. What does that mean? What do you mean you got in ethics trouble? What happened?
Okay, so my like previous experience of ethics was like being late for course or
Hmm.
whatever. They'd send you down with your twin and give you a little, you know, re
Slap the wrist.
read the policy,
That's right.
whatever. There was one time actually that my twin was late and I went down there with him and he's new to Scientology, which I could never figure out what he was doing there either, but they asked him why he was late, and he said that he'd gotten into a fight with his wife about coming there that day, and they were like, very upset, just like, oh no, friction. The wife is maybe gonna, whatever. And so like there was the ethics officer was very not so delicately throwing out the possibility that he could maybe never talk to his wife ever again if it went that far. And I started like, I had to stifle my laughter because I was like, oh my God, this is so fucking blatant, And like,
Wow.
it was like sort of inappropriate laughter because this is a very serious thing, but it was just like, I couldn't fucking believe it.
Yeah, right there in front of you. There it
Yeah.
is, being played out. I mean, we talk about it, you hear the stories about it, but then when you're sitting in the room listening to this person who has this authority of ethics,
Mhm.
they're wearing a uniform or they're wearing a nice suit and they got a desk plate and a post title and they're very serious and they have this desk and you're in their office and they're going to tell you what's what.
Yeah.
It makes it a bit more real.
Yeah, and just like casually floating the idea that like you could sever a tie with someone so close to you in your life. Um, it's very surreal. And that was not the only time that something like that happened. And so disconnection is like when they say it's not a thing, they're full of fucking shit because it's like constant. It's a constant reality.
Wow.
But anyway, the ethics trouble that I really got into was uh, it actually involves you a little bit because I was um, I was out like at a bar and I was like tipsy, and so I like was walking home, walking past the org. I see that there's people in there, so I go in. And at that time, some people that were really hardcore Sea Org members were there. Um, and everyone went outside to smoke except for me and one of the Sea Org members. And I was chatting with her. And at the time, I had overheard somebody else talking about the RPF, and that was the first time I realized that people knew about the RPF, like local people knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that kind of pissed me off because I was like kind of operating under the assumption that people didn't know that it existed.
Mm.
And so whenever I knew that all these people that I thought are basically good people know about this, I was like, the fuck, guys? Like, I know I shouldn't be surprised at this point, but it was very much like, so I had thrown some questions around the org about that and they cleared it up for me or whatever. But when I was like having this conversation with the Sea Org person, um, I said something about the RPF and um, I said like, oh, but they cleared it up for me. But like so and so, oh, what something came up where she mentioned someone that was a member at the org that was on the RPF with her for 5 years, and that she like brought him back from the brink or whatever. And I was like, oh, did you know Chris Shelton? And she was like, yeah. And
And now she wants to know, how do you know Chris Shelton?
right.
I'll bet that was the last name she expected to be dropped in the org lobby that day.
Yeah. And so I was just like, she was like, yeah, I knew him. And I have this whole story written down somewhere, but I was like, at that point, I was like, well, fuck it. I've already dropped Chris's name. I might as well reach out and say, like, you can leave if you want to. Because I think at that point, I was just kind of like, man, fuck all this. Like, this is so stupid. Um, so I said, like, if you want, like, you don't have to stay in the Sea Org. There's people that have left. Um, and she was just like, why would I want to do that? Like,
Right.
and just completely cut me off. And so, um, the next time I saw someone in the org, it was the foundation ED. She pulled me aside and she wanted to know what the fuck was I talking about. And she wanted to know like how I knew you.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I didn't know that uh, her name was Manuela. I didn't know that she had uh, not told the ED that I mentioned also that she could leave. She didn't say that part.
Mm-hmm.
She just said that I mentioned your name.
Mm-hmm.
And so I let it slip that I said that. And then she was like, wait, you said what? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And so it was a very like, I couldn't explain myself in that moment. It was just like, but like, I did say that I knew you because you were like a liberal blogger and I like had found you through that.
Huh. Okay.
And so, yeah, so I was like, well, because I'm a liberal, us liberals. And so I kind of got away with that for a while, but their like radar was like
Oh
up at
yeah.
that point,
Oh yeah. No, I'm not. I am definitely persona non grata in the world of Scientology.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Mud. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So basically they were like, don't ever like watch his videos, don't ever talk to him, whatever. And I was like, okay, fine. Um, so that kind of went by, but I was still kind of like, now I was like suspect, like really suspect. Um, and so I think it was like a week later or so, like all this is very jumbled together, but they had this massive fundraiser and I was kind of in the clear, although I think they were like, maybe you should come in and have an ethics handling like before you get back on course or whatever. But like I could still go to the fundraiser.
Yep.
And so they had this big fundraiser because they had only $3 million more that they had to raise. And it was supposed to be their last fundraiser. And so they have it at this hotel. And so I go to it and, I, it's just craziness. Like I'm used to this environment at this point, but like my friend Jeff came to pick me up and they wouldn't let him in because it would be out reality for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, actually, you're kind of right because like I can like sort of withstand how fucking weird this all is, but it's because I've been around it. But like whenever you're in the room with like people that are like they're like screaming and like people are like $500,000 and like where the fuck are you even getting this money? Like it's so bizarre and like it's just this rally of like money. Like have you ever seen Hereditary?
I have not. The horror movie?
Yeah.
No, no, I have not.
Okay. Well,
But I
there's
have
this
been in many fundraisers.
yeah. Yeah. Um
It's pretty bad.
yeah, there's a scene in Hereditary where she there's this picture of this woman that's in a cult and it's this like kind of they worship this demon and she's getting like silver dollars or whatever like poured on her and it's like whatever it looks super creepy and that's what being in a fundraiser is like. It's just this orgy of money and like it's so creepy.
Yep.
And I actually was at this other event where they did actually this woman like threw out 100 grand worth of dollar bills and we threw it all around.
Yep.
It's so creepy, like
Yep.
objectively.
It is.
But
I have to, it's because this just kind of organically came up. I have to take this moment to comment on this, that it's the fundraisers and sitting in the sales offices, the registrar's office when you're getting actually sold Scientology. Those are the beating heart of Scientology. Those moments, those places and times are the core of what it's all about. It's about extracting those Benjamins from people. And they play it up with music and dancing and lights and imagery and cake and food and fun and frivolousness. And isn't it all so exciting? But that's just smoke screens. It's just they're just trying to take your wallet out of your pocket, take every dime you've got, and give your wallet back. Go make more and come back. You know?
And all that activity, like on a certain level, they know it looks crazy because they wouldn't let my friend Jeff in.
That's right.
Because
it's
right. So manic.
It's out. Reality is the code word for that. That's the acceptable thought-stopping cliche almost for no, what we're doing is absolutely madhouse nuts.
Yeah.
And we can't let anybody see this. And folks out there, I mean, if you go to Tony Ortega's blog, you can find videos that he's posted over the years of some of these fundraisers, and they are absolutely mind-blowing. They're and being in the room, there's just no other experience quite like it.
It's I mean, that was the night that everything blew up for me because it was so fucking like, oh.
So that was it. That was the thing that pushed you over the edge.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I stayed in for another like 4 or 5 months after that, but I was really kind of out.
Yeah, mentally you were clocked out.
Yeah, and after that night, I was under like I wasn't allowed at certain things because I was not allowed on course anymore, and because what happened is after that fundraiser, Jeff had come to pick me up, but I decided to stay because they were having an after party where they were actually drinking in someone's room. And I was like, I want to be like, no one ever drinks. So it's like the one opportunity for people to like relax.
Yeah,
Like,
good
let
point.
me like go to this.
Right.
You know?
Maybe a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
How did that go?
I mean, people barely did anything. I mean,
Right. They
we
didn't
were in
really
the
open up
hotel
that much.
room. Yeah. So, but Ben gave me a ride home after that, and I was feeling very like uncomfortable with everything at that point
Mm.
because of all the things that I've mentioned. And another factor was at the time, Lori, who you got me in contact with, had
Mm-hmm.
been talking to me,
Mm-hmm.
and because her kids were they were involved with the Austin org. They lived in Austin,
Mm-hmm.
and the church had brutally like separated them. And so I was dealing with that too because that was very like emotional for me. It was very difficult to like be around people knowing that they were part of that.
Yeah.
And so that night I told Ben, I was like, I just don't know if I want to do this anymore. Uh, like I still want to be friends with you, but like this, I don't think I want to do. And he was actually pretty upset. And so he was like, "Did you ever really even give a shit about this?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I got to tell you, like, there's all these things that like are bad that I'm hearing about that are just, And I started to explain the thing with Lori, and he just shut me down and like it was like an argument. Like it was the first time that like I had presented something to him of a doubt that it turned into like a contentious thing.
Mm-hmm. Something
Because he
actually
did,
got through some of that thought fortress and got inside, and he didn't like that one little bit.
yeah, he was pissed,
Yeah.
and so I got out of the car and like the next day I was supposed to talk with one of the ladies in the front office. Like we had something set up, I can't remember what it was, but I called her because I noticed like a charge on my credit card that was like associated with the IAS and I hadn't like approved it or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called and I was going to talk to her about that and about our meeting that we were supposed to have. And the first thing that she said was, "What the hell?" And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Ben told me that you want to quit Scientology." And I was just like, "Oh, well, I mean, that was kind of an in confidence conversation."
Mm-hmm. No
But
such thing in the world of Scientology, as you learned.
right. Yeah. But at that point, like me and Ben had so many conversations that I knew he hadn't passed along.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because if he had passed them along, I would have been in trouble a lot earlier.
Oh, no
But
doubt. But you pushed
yeah,
his buttons at that point. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So that was passed along, and it was actually at that point. It was only when I said I want to leave that they were like hammer down. Like I had name dropped you, and they were still like kind of okay with it, and like still you're in. But whenever I said I want to leave, it was like
Yep.
that, like over. Um, so at that point they like moved. They were moving all their stuff out of the org because they needed to be in a temporary space to start the construction of the ideal org.
Yep.
And I started like not being able to get a hold of them because I was supposed to do these ethics handling, but like I kept getting brushed off. Um,
Yeah, they must have
so
just decided somehow internally. And this is a sort of thing that usually happens because somebody, like the ED, gets really pissed at you.
mhm.
And that attitude just filters down to everybody else. And they're like, okay, fuck her. She
Well,
wants to
yeah,
leave. You know.
yeah, and the like all the Facebook friends that I had from Scientology had unfriended me or
Yeah.
blocked me, and I was like, damn, it's like happening. Like
Oh, so yeah, boom. So
they're like
that,
done.
yeah, they did the full disconnect thing. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that really wasn't the end of it. This whole ethics thing got dragged out for so long because at the same time the Sea Org had started contacting me and they were trying to get me in, and that process took like quite a while. And so I was still handling things with the org. They ignored me for a long time, but I was in this position where like I didn't want to be disconnected from. So I was like trying to decide like, am I going to even do anything with this in the future, or should I get this handled and then not go back on course, but still be able to like be friends with or not disconnected from
Right.
by certain people.
That's right. And
Um,
that's a tightrope walk. You are far from the only person who's felt that way or had to deal with that situation or asked themselves that question.
mm.
This is when people start reaching out to me sometimes.
Oh, okay,
What
yeah,
should I do? How do I
yeah,
do this? I don't want to be disconnected from. I don't like this, but at the same time, this group bothers me. I don't know what
hmm
to do about this, right? How do I get myself extricated from this situation without losing my friends? And
yeah,
and that's the hammer that is always over your head as a Scientologist, is that threat that you're feeling right there.
hmm
And I need to capitulate. I need to make up. I need to propitiate to the church and get back in their good graces so they will allow me to have these social connections again.
yeah.
It's
It's
real. I
fucked
mean,
up.
you're right in the heart of the problem right there with these groups.
Yeah, I think I don't want to like come on. I didn't like I was like I don't want to come on and tell like a sob story because like I did this all like voluntarily, and I
Oh
was
yeah.
like I knew what disconnection was and stuff.
Hmm.
But at the same time, this period that I'm talking about was very difficult. Like it's still bothers me to this day because it's just I mean it's an awful experience. Like I had other friends like outside of Scientology that are like deep friends of mine that like it's not like these were my only friends, but like still it was just so upsetting to know that like this is it, this is the end, I'm never going to speak to these people ever again, and especially like Ben, like that was just very sad.
It is. It very much is. And contrast that. I'm using this to highlight, some points about these groups and why we call them destructive cults.
Hmm
These aren't euphemisms. These aren't like
yeah
things we say because we don't have any other words to use. And I want to highlight this point because one, I think it's important, and two, um, you went into this with a foregone conclusion, knowing it was bad. You're going to go in, you're going to see what it's all about, you're going to get involved, you're going to do this stuff. You paid $500+. I mean, you definitely
yeah
were interested in finding out what this was about.
yeah
But you had prepped yourself and knew going in beforehand that there was potentially awful here. And sure enough, along the line, you encountered that awful.
hmm
And yet, knowing all that, you still made these human connections with people, cared about them, and it really, really bothered you to be disconnected from. And the whole time that you're doing all of that, all of these people, you come into their life, you leave their life, they collectively shrug.
hmm
No
yeah I
real
mean
connection there, except for this one guy or a couple, smaller connections you had along the way, but not really the same level. It's not same,
hmm
and I find that fascinating because they'll say you're the faker. You're the
hmm
one who went in under false pretenses and rah, 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 rah. But you're more upset about leaving than they are.
yeah
you
yeah
know? And I want to highlight that because I think it speaks to your humanity and their lack of it because of the cult indoctrination.
yeah I think they have humanity, but I think they're trained to ignore it, so
Well, then, and for all
yeah
sakes, then for all intents and purposes, do they have it?
yeah
And I'm not trying to be overly cruel or hyperbolic here. Of course, they're human beings too, and of course they have feelings. But
hmm
that cult indoctrination is strong.
Yeah.
and they're not shedding any tears over you right now. And I guarantee you, I mean,
Yeah.
you've been in that world. I've been in that world. You know what that world's like. And it's not a world where they sit around, talking about how they got it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, one of the guys on staff blew at some point, and like he was gone for like a couple of months before I even noticed that he wasn't around. And I was like, "Oh, what happened to him?" And Ben was just like, "Oh yeah, he blew."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's what happens in that world.
Yeah.
People come and go, come and go,
Yeah.
come and go. And you want them to be hardcore. You want them, this is why they sort of coddle you along at the beginning.
Hmm.
Try to not hard sell you too hard, try not to blow
Hmm.
you out of the water, but they all know what's coming,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Um, I would say that I don't think that anyone was really that personally affected by me leaving, except for maybe that one guy.
Yeah.
I think that was the only one. I think if that connection hadn't have been there, I would be maybe a little more, like, little less sad. But that was, that was a real thing. So,
Yeah, for sure.
and then there were these other smaller ones, but I don't think that like those people give a shit really.
Well,
So,
yeah, and they would say they don't. And I will say, I think you did a great job of seed planting everywhere you went.
yeah,
Seriously, and I
yeah,
want to because after everything I just said about all these people, they're not affected. Rah, rah, rah.
mhm,
Yeah, of course, fine, true enough. Yet at the same time, the real situation is that you went in there and they're actually upset with you because you got past their, you were
yeah,
there,
their
you were part
maze.
of it, sort of thing.
Mhm.
And I believe that that woman you were talking to at Flag also probably was a bit more affected than you might know. Sometimes it's not obvious, and I am assuming maybe too much. I could be wrong about this, but I think your connections mattered with those people, and I think
Yeah.
long term that will matter.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two guys that are brothers, uh, I could see them leaving. Although one actually just opened up a school, a Scientology school in Austin.
He ain't leaving
Um,
anytime soon then.
yeah, but he was smart, and like I could always like I always felt like he knew. Like I would say, like he would do the what is the thing after you do auditing and then you go in there and you're like,
Oh, the examiner.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and like you don't say anything to each other, or you can say something if you want.
Yep.
But I would always like look at him and I'd be like, and he would like look at me back like that, and I was just like, you know, you know something. Like I feel like okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those two guys, like one of them I actually spoke to like a, a month ago maybe because he's still like would he was the one that was doing my ethics handling. And so maybe he's the only terminal that's allowed to talk to me.
Yeah. Could be.
But,
Could be.
uh, he had mentioned he was like I was asking him like what my status was there, and he said that like this door was still open for me to come back if I really wanted to, but he'd have to like ask around or whatever. But he was like, just for the record, like I was kind of more on your side during that whole thing, and I was like, what are you talking? Like he was like, yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff going on that had nothing to do with you, but that's why you were like
Right.
didn't have whatever. And I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, but
Oh, he's probably talking about internal stuff.
yeah,
There was either some kind of a local situation, somebody went out too deep with somebody else, or there was the fundraising and the money. That's
yeah,
always huge pressure and pushes everything else off the desk. Or it could have been, 1,000 other emergencies that they generate inside their silly little
mhm,
organization. So
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Interesting. So you just kind of became roadkill for Austin.
yeah. They sent someone out to talk to me that I sat down and had coffee with, like after it had been a couple of months after I hadn't contacted anyone.
Really?
And yeah, he was his mission, and I could tell he was not a very good liar. His mission was basically to figure out if I was going to talk shit on the church.
Okay.
Like, yeah. because he wanted to sit down and like find out like how I felt about things. Like he definitely didn't seem like he was there to get me back in. He seemed like he was there to figure out if I had a bad experience that I wanted to talk about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What? And this was a local Austin staff member?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
This is the guy I did the communication course with.
Oh, he had joined
Yeah.
staff. Or he had already been on staff.
He wasn't on staff at the time of the communication course, but his wife was, and she went to St. Hill to do some OT shit, and so he replaced her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he comes out, and that was the last contact officially with the church.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Well, clearly he didn't do his job too well, because here we are talking.
Yeah, I know. I was like, this is already a foregone conclusion, my friend.
Yeah, y'all done screwed up. Yeah, y'all done
Yeah.
fucked up. Yep. Gonna be a little bit more negative marks for Kathy this week on her stats. Sorry,
Yeah.
Kathy.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, don't have that PR area control quite in as well as you'd like.
Yeah, you let the fox into the hen house a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But funny, they'll take those statements and make this out to be some big, huge covert operation or something against the church, which it is definitely was not.
It was literally just me like being bored.
Exactly, because I don't ever suggest that people do this, and in fact, I think I tried to talk you out of it.
Yeah, people really. If you're listening and you think that this is a good idea, it's not. Don't do it.
No, it's a waste of time and money.
Yeah.
It just really is. I mean, unless you've got something very specific you're going in there to do.
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm talking to law enforcement. Please investigate. But if you just want to know what Scientology is all about, I mean, just go to their website. It's all there. And then come to my website, and then I'll tell you about the real truth. But which is not there. And because I'm not, because I don't put out that the things that Scientology is saying are not true. They believe those things. That is Scientology. But there is another layer to it behind that. And if you don't know about that layer and what's really going on, you could believe the smoke and mirrors. And that's the problem, and you got a bit of a taste of what's really going on with that group, and it's not pretty.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I just wanted to mention like the Sea Org recruitment was gross. It was
do tell. Inquiring minds want to know. How did they approach you? What did they talk to you about?
So like I said, I don't think that they knew I was in ethics trouble. So they started this husband and wife team started contacting me about joining the Sea Org. And I was like, well, wow, okay. I didn't think that I'd be asked to do this. I am not a very trustworthy individual to you guys. But okay, so you're interested in getting me there. And so they were like, basically they wanted to offer to fly me down for free so that I could like get recruited. Like, they were like, you can come down, we'll pay for your flight, we'll pay for you to stay at Fort Harrison or whatever.
So this was flag recruiters calling you from Clearwater. Yeah. Okay. Wow, they would actually fly you to Clearwater. Was it a two-way trip?
No.
Right.
That was the thing. I was like, if they fly me down there, I'm gonna have to find my way back.
That's right. You're gonna be a captive audience. That's what that's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but they were at the time. They were very like the recruiter was like trying to scramble to get it all organized, and he got me to agree to do this. But he was like, and I was like, sweet, I'm gonna get a free trip to Florida. And I think it was like around the same time that Aaron was having his party. So it's like, maybe I can meet up with them.
That's right.
Yeah, I was like, maybe I can meet up with them and the Leah Remini crew and stuff. And so I was like, sweet, Scientology is going to pay for me to go to Florida. And I'm just going to hang out on the beach and like maybe get high pressure experience and then go hang out with Aaron. because at that point I was like, this is completely over. Like Austin's not talking to me. The Sea Org is talking to me, and I don't know them from anyone else, so I don't really care. Um, so
Wow, and they have such a different idea of you in their head. I
yeah.
mean, it is actually comedy. I mean, it really is pretty funny
At that
that,
point, I
you
was
know.
laughing because like I was the Austin stuff I was like sad about, but I was like, I can't believe that they are offering to fly me for free to Florida. They have no idea what the fuck is happening.
That's right.
Like, um, yeah, so that was pretty amusing. But I think that he figured out that I was in ethics trouble, and so he was like, the free flight was off the table, but they still wanted me to come,
Mm-hmm.
and so and they still wanted me to join the Sea Org.
Mm-hmm.
So they went ahead and they were like, let's do the like whole life interview thing to get you prepared, just to make sure that like you can join the Sea Org. There's nothing that's keeping you besides the ethics trouble. You can handle that, blah blah blah. But we want to interview you about your life history, and this is like, I guess, a standard thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, very much so. The life history,
Yeah.
especially. That's. Did you do the life history?
Yes.
Did you do it
And
honestly?
hell no.
Okay, good,
Hell no.
because it is probably the single most invasive interrogation you will ever get.
That's why I was saying before, I wanted to mention that because it was,
Yeah.
I mean, even for me, I had been used to like having conversations with Scientologists where I wasn't all the way truthful. Like I presented myself to the Austin Org like as myself, but like on certain things, whenever it came to like whether or not I believed in certain shit, I would lie.
Mm-hmm.
But this was like actually like pretty intense,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew certain answers would mean that I couldn't like come down there,
Mm-hmm.
if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were just so invasive. Like basically, it was two different people that interviewed me because they had to call me back and stuff. Um, but one was a guy and one was a girl. And I mean, they ask you about all the sexual, like they get into like your sexual history, but it's not just like how many sexual partners have you had? It's like, did you ever like maybe if a boyfriend wanted you to like do something like that you wouldn't normally do? Like it's just like, oh, like
Yeah.
this is so fucking creepy.
Every
Yeah.
partner, every instance, everything you did, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. And
there, I have to tell you, just because I've never told this story before, but there was one woman who actually
that is,
wrote who wrote the sexual history part of the life history, because it's like part 3 or something of like seven,
mhm.
6 or 7 parts or some shit. She wrote it like a romance novel. I mean,
What?
literally, she wrote it in the third person. She wrote her sexual history in such detail. It was like reading a romance novel. She then did this and he then did that. I mean, it was graphic.
Oh.
We didn't know whether to laugh or be horrified. We really couldn't figure out how to deal with this because she gave us the data we were asking her
Yeah,
for. It
yeah.
was just in this really bizarre form. Anyway, I just had to, I've never got a chance to talk about that before, but
See, I feel like that is a moment where, like, when people think like cult members are like all like automatons or whatever, like that's a very human moment between you guys because you're
right.
getting this and like all like the
What?
fuck.
Yeah. People don't do this,
Yeah,
Exactly. And you're not used
yeah,
to it because in a cult, things are very rigid. So it's very
mhm,
same. That's
yeah,
how it is. But anyway, yeah, they ask you about all this invasive sexual stuff. They want to know all your friends, your all your relatives, and
mhm.
how your relationship is with them right now. Well, I mean, how did you answer all this stuff?
Um, like my relationships with my family, that was easy, you know. I think I mentioned I was like, oh, my brother works for a pharmaceutical company, but I'm not like close with him. I don't ever talk to him,
Oh, okay.
you know. So I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, it's okay. I don't talk to him.
Yeah.
And you know, my parents, I was, you know, it's whatever. And but then there was a snag because they wanted to know, like when they were asking me about all the sexual stuff, they wanted to know if I'd ever done anything with women, and I was like, no. And they were like, cool, 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 and they went along and did all their other stuff. And the drug stuff, I lied about all of that because I've done a lot of drugs. And so
Oh, so you didn't cough up anything about your drug history?
No.
Cool.
No.
Good.
But so they called, they got that all done, but then I got a call back because there was a point, I mean, the Austin org knew that I was gay, but I don't think that it was, there was no reason for them to write it down, except for there was this one time I was in the course room and I was talking to the soup about something where I was saying that like I was having these like kind of ups and downs, like emotionally, because this person that I was interested in was like being hot and cold with me. And she was like, she wanted me to write it down. And so I wrote it down and whatever. I don't know where it went, but that was in my file.
Uh-huh.
And it was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so they called me back and they were like, what's all this?
Mm-hmm. So they finally got the file. Yeah.
Yeah. So they got that, and they, the guy that was interviewing me was fucking relentless about like whether or not I'd had sex with women. And like he went over like every different type of sexual act that I could have done, and he asked me if I had done them, and he asked me it several times, and he was like, you've never done that to her, and she's never done that to you, and like and like he would like repeat it, and I had to like, it was like kind of like, it was really kind of funny, but it was also like, God, I feel like it sucks that I'm like having to say that I've never done this before, because I feel kind of like, wow, like I'm a lesbian. What a fucking like loser. I have never.
Oh.
Like, I'm having to tell this guy like, no, I've never like, never had any kind of sexual experience.
Huh.
Yeah. So that was fucking bizarre as hell. But
yeah. I mean, there's no question they don't feel they can ask you. They'll ask you anything they want to know, and they feel they have the perfect right to ask you, and you better be telling them the truth.
Yeah,
that is the attitude. I mean, it's hardcore. It really is. It is. I'm only kind of looking back on this now. It's been so many years since I was in that headspace, and there have been there's been a lot of water that's gone under the bridge at this end, over these years. And I used to recruit people. Like I was the guy on the phone asking those questions. I've done that work, and I'm marveling right now at who that person was who did that, because it wasn't me. It's such a different headspace.
You felt like that was like that you were operating as like an agent rather than as yourself?
I was just in such a different place. The amount of, you want to talk about a place of entitlement and privilege, that is the Sea Org. You know, the Sea Org is this very, very rough, abusive outfit internally. But when it comes to how the Sea Org deals with people outside of the Sea Org, it is a titanium armor plating. You're not getting any of this. I'm not telling you anything about myself, but you're telling me everything about you.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is, right? I hold authority, you don't.
Right, exactly. And that's why I was just, because I sort of knew that on a certain level, that's why I found it so strange that Sarah, the Sea Org member that sold me the books, kept talking to me after she sold me the books, and we talked a lot about her life.
Yep.
Because it was like, what are you doing?
Well, that's why I said it mattered.
Yeah.
Because it did. Because she didn't have to be having those conversations with you, and those were good conversations, and they were real conversations. And as you've seen, that's a rarity in the Sea Org and in Scientology.
Yeah, for sure. And then, like, whenever I went down I eventually went down there, not to join the Sea Org, but like because Aaron was having his party, but like they knew that I was there, and they were still trying to recruit me. I don't know why they didn't see it, but
it just speaks to the desperation. I'm telling you, it is.
Yes.
I mean, you were a recruit cycle. We would have called you that. You were a recruit cycle.
Mhm.
your recruit cycle would have been dropped like a hot potato the second it was even hinted that you were gay,
Mhm.
or earlier, you dropping
Yeah.
my name, right? Like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
And there's no
Yeah.
ethics handling here, and this, no, like, what?
Mhm.
This was so
But
they are so desperate for people at this point. It really does speak to that. I think this is a an anecdote that holds weight.
yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable that they would like want me because if I would be like the least desirable candidate for that position, you know.
Yeah,
Um, and and as you said in the past, like just the hint that I was gay would have been over, you know.
absolutely. You're never getting in the Sea Org as a practicing homosexual. I'm just
Yeah.
forget it.
Well,
It's
and
impossible. You know.
I had told the guy interviewing me that I had hooked up with a guy after like having lesbian feelings, and that's what like ended it for him.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, great."
Oh, okay. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I went down to Clearwater and uh Sarah like found out that I was there and she's like wanted to meet up and I was like, "What?" I mean, I was like, "Yeah, I want to, but like why?" And so like I met up with her and she only had like 10 minutes, but like we like hung out for a little bit and then she went off and did her thing.
Telling you
But
that mattered. That mattered.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's why I didn't want to like cuz that was so weird, I wanted to like keep talking to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Um but eventually even that got uh kind of like I don't know if she got in trouble, but like that definitely got shut down
Yeah.
because her like partner that she had started texting me instead of her, and she wanted like I had taken a picture with her, and she wanted the picture, and like I all of a sudden like this person was like not responding, like she wouldn't
Yep.
respond to my text or whatever, and I was like, okay, this is getting shut down,
Yep.
like yeah.
That's exactly what happened. Somebody probably saw her text messages, saw they were personal, and was like, off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
You're externally influenced. You're being pally. It's actually an offense. I mean, in the Sea Org, that's actually a thing. Being chummy with the shore is what they call it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hubbard's,
yeah. Can't
naval lingo.
can't talk about movies with the people on the
Mm-mm.
shore.
Nope. Well, like I said,
Jesus
it's
Christ.
that thing I said. It's a titanium plate. Nothing about what goes on inside the world of the Sea Org is coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. It's locked down. They will not talk about it. Which is why if one of them is talking about it, that's a big chink in that armor, because that's not
Mm-hmm.
how it's supposed to be. And what I'm describing to you is not just because Hubbard said so. It's the whole culture of the Sea Org. It's a group enforced thing. It's beyond any one person's ability to control. It's just the intensity of an extremist group. That's what they do. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, for sure. And I could feel it like on every level whenever I started interacting more with Sea Org people, I could feel it on like
Yeah.
just the
Whole
difference
different
of
vibe
just
from the Austin staff.
yeah. I think there's like that Brian Culkin guy that was that did an interview a long time ago. He had mentioned how he went from local org
Hmm.
where he actually felt sort of cared for, and then he was at Flag and he was just like felt like a ATM machine.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's how my mom felt. The last thing she did was in Scientology was she went to Flag for a month, and they treated her like crap, and she
Yeah.
hated it. She had the worst experience of her life, and she was like, "I am never coming back here again."
Well, thank God for that.
Yeah, that was the end for her. And
Yeah.
she'd gotten really high up on
Hmm.
training, on auditing. She'd done a lot. So yeah, Flag is where if they don't get rid of you earlier, Flag will do the job. They'll work it out to get rid of you.
Yeah, there was the no, it was too strict.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Way too much. Well, quite an interesting experience you had. You
yeah.
know, I mean, did you imagine when we first talked 3 years ago, when you first reached out to me with this idea, and I was like, please don't. Did you imagine at all that it even could have gone to where it went?
No. No, I did not because I really thought that I could take courses and be like not emotionally like entangled with anyone. So that to me it just seemed simple. Like I could like as if I was like taking a university course. Like I'd know the professor and like some of the other classmates, but it'd be over. Like I think that the events and the events and the fact that I was around the org enough to talk to people really changed that experience from just showing it. Because like I said, my twin, he never went to events, and he has this very like loose connection with them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I thought my experience was going to be like. But then I ended up, I'm an extremely social person, and so I ended up talking to these people. And no, I did not expect it to go that way. I did know that at the end I would have to never see these people again, but I didn't think that I would care.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And there's, and just to highlight a difference here in the thinking, because I see exactly where you were going with that, where you were thinking and how you were thinking that way. And it really, I mean, it's really a lesson learned, and hindsight, we can look back on that and see. The thing about Scientology, or about cults in general, destructive cults in general, is that they are built on emotional connections. I've said for years, one of the most basic logical fallacies that people will fall into going into one of these groups is appeal to emotion. There's a tremendous amount of the feels that are going on, trying to bring you in and keep you in and retain you as a cult member. And so it's all about connecting at some human level with these people, right? Otherwise, the spell doesn't quite work as strongly as well. And and then people leave, and even you knowing all that, it still worked on you.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, people like some of my close friends were not very worried about me, but like some of my acquaintances in the comedy community were worried that I would be brainwashed, and they were wrong about that. Like I wasn't brainwashed by the tech, but they were right in the sense that I was not expecting the emotional component to be as strong as it was.
Exactly.
And that's just based on like your everyday interaction where like you start to be fond of people,
right.
And the thing that is so horrifying is that like, even if the people that I want to talk to wanted to talk to me, they literally can't. And it's not even really their fault. Yep. Because their moms, their dads, their brothers, sisters, everyone is in the group, and they would have to literally choose me over those people if they wanted to talk to me. And like that's out of the question, obviously.
That's right.
And so that's what I think that's one of the most insidious things, is that like that you are presented with anyone that wakes up that you have a relationship with, you're suddenly presented with, you're going to lose someone. You're going to lose either the people that are still in, or you're going to lose that person that's leaving. Like, that sucks. I mean, it's a horrible situation to be in. And I think it happens like constantly.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it is, and that, pretty much is the basis of the tragedy of most of the broken relationships of these groups. That is the consequence of it. Ugh. Yuck, huh?
Sorry.
No, not don't be sorry at all. It's part of the experience. And I'm including this podcast in a series of interviews I've done with people that I've called the Scientology experience, because this is what happens. And we've walked through many people's stories with this in and out of Scientology, and every one of them is in and out of Scientology. Because that's, as my friend Mark Headley likes to say, that is the ultimate product of Scientology, is you leaving Scientology.
Yeah.
And it's really just a matter of how much money and time and energy they're going to siphon off of you before you go.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I wanted to mention about the emotional component that that you brought up is that there was something that I realized while I was in that was very disturbing to me because of like how much I wanted to be not connected mentally,
Mm-hmm.
is that I knew that their project was should like if I was to get my way, their project of building Scientology and expanding it would fail.
Mm-hmm.
But while I was in, there was a certain part of me that was like rooting for them,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like when you watch like The Sopranos and like you want Tony Soprano to like do well. It's like he's like a villain, but like you're seeing it from their perspective and you're like, yeah, I want you to do well. Like I want you to get the things that you want,
That's right.
you know?
That's right.
And so there was a weird feeling of being on their side. And a weird feeling of them being on my side. Like if someone wanted to fuck with me, like they like would have my back.
Yep.
And that was one of the strangest feelings, because
Yeah.
I knew it was an illusion, but it was definitely a feeling that I had.
Absolutely. And had you stuck with it, not so illusory. I mean, let's be real. At the moment, it was very real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you were presenting yourself as a Scientologist. You even said, I'm a Scientologist. They had no reason to doubt you. You're
Mm-hmm.
there. You're paying money. You're taking part in this activity. You're a group member.
Yeah.
You know, and
Mm-hmm.
and those connections are real connections. You know, and this is you know, nobody undercover work, whatever you want to call it. You know, it has a price.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's like, you know, they're just data. They just go in and are this perfect actor and have no actual emotional connection with other human beings. It doesn't work that way at all.
Yeah. I had some Scientology Donnie Brasco shit going on.
That's right.
I was like, who am I?
That's right. It is what it is, man.
Yeah.
I find myself, I'll just contribute to that as well by saying that, you know, for years after leaving Scientology, I would see these failed organizations, these goose egg organizations that, you know, there's just nobody coming in, nothing happening, no books being sold. And I was for years, not weeks, not months, for years, I was working at expanding those organizations, like with all my might. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard. It was so hard for so long. It's not now. Now it's not. I don't have any conflict, but for a long time, there was this, you know, in my head of making fun of them, but also thinking, you bunch of idiots. It doesn't have to be like, you could change this. You
Yeah.
could turn this around. You could grow Scientology if you guys would just do a couple simple things. This
Yeah.
whole thing could turn around, you know. But you got to stop being a destructive cult, and it's in their and it's in their DNA to be what they are. They can't be something different than that. So,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
definitely had those conversations in my head too of like, if you guys would just stop, like, oh my God, doing this or that, like maybe you'd get what you want, but
right?
you can't stop because it's part of like who you are.
That's right. And they can't think their way out of that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they're going to watch this. I guarantee you that there are people who are going to see this and in Scientology, and they're thinking right now, we have no idea what we're talking about. We're a bunch of idiots. We're just suppressives. And it's like, man, I've been in that headspace, dude. You know, you got to come out to mine. I've been in yours.
Yeah.
I know what that
Yeah.
feels like, you know. And you know, and we're just a couple regular people just living life. This isn't you know, the suppressive League of America. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, good stuff. I want to thank you for doing this. This has been a long time coming. We've been talking off and on for a long time, and I'm really glad this happened. And I think this was okay. What do you think?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I didn't realize until we started getting into it how long of a saga it's been, and how many different things. There's stuff that we didn't even get into. It's fine, but like I'm just like, damn, okay, that was
Right?
a lot.
Yeah.
So I think this was good though. I think we like talked about a lot of good stuff.
Cool. Well, I for our first real live, you know, communication like this for this length of time, I thought it went great, and I was very happy to do this with you. So thanks for doing all this and suffering the shellacking that you did so you can tell the story that you have. I mean, I'm sure there's more you can do with this, and should, by the way. I mean, I can only imagine the comic gold that must be here if you think it through on that level.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, thank you for going and taking the hits for us and coming back to tell the story.
Well, thank you for being there for all my random questions throughout all this time, and and for being willing to talk with me, because I think this is it's pretty cathartic, for sure.
Yeah, it helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right, guys. I hope that you found this conversation, as usual, interesting, enjoyable, entertaining, informative. If so, maybe think about supporting this channel. It is you guys who keep this going. You paid for this mic. You bought this board. You are keeping these lights on. It is you guys, seriously, and I want to thank you for that. And I want to contribute. I want to, ask that if you want to contribute to this, I would very much appreciate it, because I could use that right now. Going back to university, especially, I got some books to buy and some things to cover. So, anyway, that's my plug for this week on that. And regardless of your level of support for the channel, thank you very much for your viewership and for inviting me into your home for this time. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.